Sure, maybe I'll give a little bit of a background as to why this whole concept of the bold place came into play. As we were working with NASCIO and we were looking at the results of this survey, two prominent themes were coming into play. Right? One is the states have an executive platform that's legitimate, that is now blessed by and authorized by the legislative mandates. 63% of the states said the state level CISO authority is established by law or statute, which is a huge progress from 2010. So the CISOs have an executive platform. They are starting to report to the governors and the legislature on a more regular basis on cyber. And when they have such an executive platform, what can they do with it? The second aspect of the finding, which is the persistent challenges that we have seen since 2010, the budget, talent, and increasing sophistication of threats. And we looked at it and said, well, what can the states do to really break away from the status quo, leverage the executive platform that the CISOs have? And that's how the bold place came into play. So the first bold play, which is really looking at the budget challenge. Now, when we looked at the results of the survey, a few themes were emerging with respect to budget. The first is the year-over-year increase in budget is very small, and it's still very small, and most of the states have the same budget. The IT budget or the cyber budget as a percentage of IT budget still is in most of the states 1 to 2%, and if you look at holistically, it is really from 0 to 3% of the overall technology budget. When we really look at it with federal agencies and commercial sector, this is really like they are breaking away free and they are progressing much faster. And for instance, one of the research analyst studies says that US-based organizations are spending 28% of their technology budget on cyber. Most federal agencies, and I'm talking about federal agencies, not the ones that are responsible for national security. Like even if you take the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security budgets away, the civil agencies are still spending considerably more amount of money in an absolute dollar value, as well as in percentage basis, much more than what the states are doing. So as a percentage of technology budget, the cyber spending is still very low. So, and the third point on the budget is that almost 50% of the states don't even have a separate line item for cybersecurity budget. So there is really no visibility of how much a state is collectively spending on cyber. So looking at these collective issues and the fact that the federal agencies and private sector have put quite a bit of distance with the states, so we really thought that the first bold play ought to be related to the budget and making cybersecurity as a budget line item. Doing that would bring the visibility to the state leaders on what the budget is like, and the states can still do what they want to do in terms of prioritizing it by risk and communicating the risk that they are taking by not being able to spend on certain initiatives. And we believe that doing that will really move the ball forward on the budget. There is evidence that the federal agencies have just done that. So in the past, only the defense agencies were required to report the cybersecurity funding. But in the past few years, through legislation, the White House security budget now separates out cybersecurity spending for every one of the agencies. So we believe that the visibility is going to help. And the second aspect is, we see from this study that when the states are implementing the required cyber requirements from federal agencies, and when those requirements come with funding, they are much more effective. It's kind of a no-brainer when you look at it because, well, you have a mandate, and if it's a funded mandate, it's going to get done pretty quickly and more effectively. And we saw that in the CMS, the Center for Medicaid Services, the MARSI-related requirements that came with a good bit of fundings, and the state said, look, we were able to effectively move the ball forward. So one of the things that we are suggesting as part of this bold play is advocate and request the federal agencies like the Treasury, the SAGES, and justice agencies that are consistently doing audits and assessments on the states to seek funding from them to actually implement and the corrective action plans for those audits.